This person says Indiana wants them, they can have them. What are they talking about? They're talking about a measure in Indiana that's being pushed through to try and alter the state borders between Illinois and Indiana to create two new states, a new Illinois and new Indiana. So it'd still be Illinois and Indiana, but with vastly different borders because there are a shit ton of southern Illinois counties that want to break off and join Indiana, and Indiana wants to absorb those counties because they're like thinking, like minded politically speaking. They're very red, very conservative, very right wing, and Indiana in turn wants to give us their northern counties. That's what's being pushed here. Indiana bill would examine changing state boundaries amid Illinois secession votes. Indiana lawmakers passed a measure out of committee this week, but it would face numerous obstacles even if passed. I'm not saying this is going to be a reality, I'm saying this is what they want. The proposed legislation comes as more than 30 Illinois counties have approved referendums that would allow elected officials to explore the possibility of seceding from Illinois and either forming their own state or joining another. According to the Indiana General Assembly's website, the bill passed out of committee earlier this week, paving the way for further debate on the measure. To all of our neighbors in the West, we hear your frustrations and invite you to join us in low-cost, low-tax Indiana. Indiana officials have been encouraged to pursue the legislation by a series of votes in a number of Illinois counties, with voters tackling the question of whether they want to explore the idea of seceding from Illinois. So, what is the new boundaries, or what would the new boundaries be if this measure in Indiana went forward? Well, as you know, this is what the Illinois and Indiana boundaries currently look like. Illinois on the left, Indiana on the right. Here is what the Illinois and Indiana land exchange of 2026 would change those borders to be. You see the line cutting across the two states? That would be the new border. So everything north of that line would be Illinois. Everything south of, I know it's incredibly difficult to grasp given the historic nature of these borders, right? You can see at the bottom here what it would do to the population. Illinois would go from having 12.8 million people to having 13.9 million. So Illinois' population would increase. Indiana's would decrease, obviously, going from 6.8 million to 5.6 million. It would also take most of the highest earning counties in the state. There are some in the lower, the far southern portion, and then obviously in the central portion. But the biggest conglomeration of highest earning counties in the state of Indiana would fold into Illinois. Which means quite literally that if Indiana got its way, if this bill became a law somehow, and I think Congress has to get involved with it, but let's just say for shits and giggles that what they want eventually comes to fruition and that becomes the new border between Illinois and Indiana, Illinois would become a stronger state economically than it is right now. Illinois would become a weaker state economically than it is right now. Indiana would give up a chunk of its high earners, a couple of its major universities, Notre Dame and whatnot, and all of its northern higher earning areas to Illinois. And Illinois would give Indiana all of its lower earnings, heavily dependent counties in southern Illinois. Illinois would make out in this tremendously well, and the new state of Indiana would become even more federally dependent than they currently are. As much as I love the borders that currently exist between Illinois and Indiana, let's do this. Let's do it. Let's watch Indiana become an even weaker state economically speaking. Let's fine. Where do I have to sign?